This episode of Super Pop Science is brought to you by Laundryman Book 2, Blood of the Saucerman. Find it today at laundryman.ca.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I have brought some co-conspirators onto the show for you today, dear listener. My long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork, writer, letterer, graphic designer extraordinaire, Lyndon. Welcome to the show.
I'm back again.
Back again.
I'm here every week.
Haunting the studio.
I'm so sorry, dear listener. I'm so sorry.
And producer extraordinaire, Dan Vadeboncoeur. Let's not stand on ceremony, Dan. Let's just talk about what happened.
Okay. All right, sounds good. You go ahead. Oh, do you want me to start this?
Well, I heard it happened because of you.
Yeah, well, not... I was involved, we'll say that.
I like how this, dear listener, everyone's fine. No one was arrested.
Me too.
Everything's good. Yeah, no, it's not like that.
Okay.
However, Dan, you have a role at the Red River College. No, Polytechnic now.
RRC Polytech or Red River College Polytechnic. It's one or the other. You cannot combine them.
You can't combine them?
No.
I will, though.
I know.
And everyone does.
I know.
And the lack of understanding how the world works is perhaps indicative of this thing we're going to discuss today. Why don't you tell us why I was at the college in disguise?
You were there because I invited you, and not realizing what happened. And maybe you had an idea of what would happen, and that's why you came.
Yes, that is exactly why I came.
But what it was I was actually asked to MC what they call a fireside chat, which is a...
Sounds cozy.
Yeah, it was not.
Well, things did heat up.
There a fire?
There was no fire, and I didn't really have any input into this event, so I really wanted to have an AI fire blazing on the screen, but this person had their own, that was my idea. I'll get whatever one of these things to make a video of a fire, and it'll be funny. But these guys had their own idea. These guys, it was a former student of some instructor somewhere who actually pitched to the college to come in and give a talk about AI in the workplace. AI and creativity, I believe, was the name.
No, we going to name their name?
No. We're not going to keep all names out of this.
But the reason I was going to say that we should is because I stayed after the events, and I've had correspondence with them since. And they've kind of taken ownership for their roles in how things are. Some of it is a myopic view. And it's a public event. People could look it up. It was posted.
Yeah. Certainly a lot of people talking about it online afterwards.
Yeah, right? So to pretend they didn't show up, I'll leave to you in the edit. You can second guess it.
All right.
Right? But it's Ben Myers and Sophie Theodorou came, and they wanted to discuss. This is me now as a simple audience member. Right?
Setting the scene.
They were there to discuss implementation of AI, creative implementations to business, and their roles as business leaders or business development people.
What kinds of businesses?
Well, one of them owns a Non-Such Brewing. That's Ben's company, which is separate from that. It's it's a legitimate just brew pub place. You've been to Non-Such a bunch, right?
Yeah, and they've recently started coming out with AI-generated beer cans.
Yeah, so you haven't been going since...
I haven't been for a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and so...
I wonder... This makes sense now. That makes sense given the presentation.
An important part of this, I think, dear listener, is that even though the discussion surrounding AI is very inflammatory, it's important to recognize that the people using it are also people. And I think that they were definitely the target of the ire of the student body at this fireside chat. They were a little blindsided by it. And when one says, how could it be that they are surprised that people are upset? I want to tell you that I went through the Red River Business Program in my misspent youth. And in business training, you are told, get forgiveness, not permission. Yeah. That's part of how you wield capital in the business training world. We can talk about the ethics of that till we're blue in the face. I think you know how I feel about that. It's not good. But that's the culture of doing business. And so if someone presents you a new tool and you are a creative and interested and curious person, you will likely experiment with that tool.
Yes.
And if it yields results, you will go, cool, and you will try to implement those results. If you are not thinking about the broader implications of that tool because of the world you come from, we can shout and be angry at you all we want, but it doesn't change the facts that they didn't do it maliciously. I think I've realized now, having spoken with them after, that there was no malicious intent. Nobody is like strip mining the world of creativity. They were just handed a tool and so they used it.
Yeah, but I do want to say, like, I just went back to look and see how this was originally presented, and it was called Upcoming Event AI X. I love when they go times, like AI X, AI times Creativity Fireside Chat, and that's it.
That's right.
AI times creativity.
Right.
And I should mention that the audience was a bunch of creative arts students. So these are students in the creative communications program. I've taught into all these programs, actually.
As well as a few graphic designers from the city.
Oh, is that right? Okay, I didn't see them.
I wasn't the only person in industry who came.
Okay, interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And we all sat together.
Okay.
You know,
it was DMD. I was sitting right next to you. DMD. Digital media design, graphic design, and Crecom were the students, and then instructors involved in those programs, and then you said people from industry.
And then there were some people from
all right, so that's the setup. That's what we sat down, and he had his own presentation. I did not look at it ahead of time. All I did was show up. My role in this whole thing was to run the Q&A afterwards, just to kind of walk around with the microphone and let people ask their question, and then wait for the response and go to the next question. Moderator, yeah, but there was a different person who introduced it, and then we went from them into their fireside chat when it was left largely to the guest to manage it, right? For about maybe half hour, 45 minutes, it was just these two people talking on chairs.
I'm going to go on record as saying that I think, Dan, you did a really good job when it came to the moderating part.
Thank you.
As things started going off the rails, the role of the moderator is to try and make sure that there can be a constructive element to the conversation. And so I'll just frame this so that it's on record. I think at a certain point, it became clear that the students were very emotional, but not very methodical about their arguments. And so you started, it seemed to me, bouncing between a student's point of view and then a professor's point of view. And they had brought
was this just a round discussion? Did they have a slideshow?
Yes.
They talk, what
no.
happened?
Okay, so here's the breakdown.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Here's the breakdown. Slideshow discussion. You've done it. It's the same kind of stuff you and I have done many times. You come with a little slideshow, you talk about your career, you show the tools that have helped make your career possible. And then if there's some new and sudden exciting thing in your career that is relevant to the current conversation, that is usually what you've been brought to discuss.
So they talked about their businesses and how AI is helping them do things with their businesses in exciting ways.
Be better. Make more truffleage.
Well, he specifically comes from non-such. So he talked about how he built, using AI, he built a customer service bot basically to help with inquiries about whatever, opening, closing, that kind of stuff, the kind of, or questions about the beer or whatever. Chatbot, exactly. The exact same kind of thing thing that Gregory thinks he's dealing with all the time when he deals with these things. And me too, by the way, me too. I'm now starting to suspect every time I open one of these chat windows, it's a bot.
Yeah.
Well, especially if they're too quick.
And she had come in and so he's like a local business person who's kind of adopted AI, and she was not from Winnipeg, I think, or coming back to Winnipeg after an extended absence, and she just kind of positioned herself as an AI expert who helps translate what it is for people who don't know. So her role is more of like explaining what it is to people who don't understand it yet. And I do think that was a bit of a miss aim, because I think at this point certainly the students know what it is, and we've all talked about it enough that like she didn't really have much. She was very nice and she did have good responses, I think, in a lot of cases, but her role wasn't really necessary in this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and so my counterpoint to that is I thought Sophie was a really interesting person because she comes from education.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And so from her point of view, it was like, how do you take complicated information and present it? She talked about a story about how TikTok allowed her to reach this broad audience, and she had essentially stumbled on the idea that people were interested in AI. I'm characterizing it, Sophie, feel free to correct me, but this is sort of how she framed it. It was like, I was interested in TikTok, I was trying some videos, and then a few questions that I posed answers to as a teacher using AI as the solution to prepping lesson plans went huge and viral. And the more I looked into it, the more people were interested. So she just followed people's interests, and it built a consulting job basically for her, because she has a kind of like a whisperer persona to say like
She has an understanding of it that a lot of people don't. And so she can explain it really clearly to people, which is great.
You need someone to take care of you? Would you like a nanny? I have many good references. Do you know where the blue fairy lives?
So when did the rumbling start?
Well, here's
I don't know.
I know exactly when the rumbling starts. So they put up the first slide. We're all number one. For those of you who don't know how fireside chats usually work, it's not as cozy as it sounds. It's basically an auditorium setting, right? But a little bit nicer. But the college provided food, snacks, things over the lunch hour. So it was like very well attended, and like students were there and they were all munching away on their snacks, and they were like, okay, we are skeptical, but the college has done a good job. We all feel cozy and well fed. It was good. There was no hangries, or else it would have been even worse. But then the slide for the order of discussion went up, and they left on their slide 10 minutes at the very end to discuss what should have been the entire conversation. This is what everyone was there to discuss: the following thing: the ethics of use. They left to the end in their discussion, and as we know how Q&As work, that means they weren't planning to do it, right? Or maybe they just don't have enough experience as public speakers to know that
You often run out of time. You're not going to get
the
10
last
minutes.
thing on your list. So by framing, and that started the rumble. People were like, why is this the last thing that we're going to consider? Isn't that supposed to be the first thing you consider? Doesn't ethics inform action, and then action inform your business? You can't take action and then wonder if it was ethical. This was the rumbling that were happening before they even started talking. So they had accidentally poisoned the crowd against themselves by not knowing who their audience was.
Yeah.
I think that was very obvious.
I think the what I noticed is when he started putting up this AI generated art, it was funny because there was a comment about AI slop, and they acknowledged that the AI slop was a thing that existed, and like said, oh yeah, that slop is awful. And then he turns around and shows us a website that's basically designed to generate AI slop.
You're right.
Right? Like it's basically a thing that he made that could generate like an image based on certain criteria, and you put these what he called spices in. So like it has sunglasses or not, it has this or not, and all these different things, and it would randomly generate a thing for you.
But specifically using AI image generation that is no longer in favor because it was exposed early on for stealing directly from known living artists.
Calling that spices is such a marketing, new age, like attempt at being hip lingo when it's just a prompt, like it's just another prompt that you're tossing in.
Yeah. So anyway, that was when I felt the crowd was starting to turn, was when that stuff started going up. Yeah. And when he made it specifically, I think if he kept it about the texting or the text chat stuff, it would have been okay. But as soon as he went into the art realm, and I know these students, I've taught a lot of these students, and they are artists. They're absolutely artists first. And so they were not happy with that.
And he, Ben took the position, has the position, entered with the position that this is also a valid form of art. And so that by putting in these prompts and generating these things, he is an artist.
Yes, and I saw him get very defensive about it online later.
And when people said, no, you're stealing, he said, that's all artists do, is they steal. And so if I steal too, that's fine, because that's all artists do. That turned the room against him instantly.
I didn't think these people actually existed. I thought it was just kind of a joke on the internet of people who use AI prompts and then call themselves an artist.
Yeah. No, those are
real people.
Now, here's the thing. Again, this isn't intended to be. I didn't bring it up or want to bring it up because we're going to slam Ben for his myopic point of view. I think the constructive thing is, which I tried to bring up, the following thing, and this is illustrative of the tone of the crowd. What I tried to say when you passed me the microphone is I introduced myself. I explained what I do for a living, that I work with artists in all kinds of different varieties and all kinds of different businesses, and that I thought that what they were presenting was the logger's view of the forest, that something is only valuable if you can cut it down, and that the people in this room represent the forest, and that perhaps they should consider that. What I was going to say next was, in forestry, there's a conservation element. And so that if you extract the resource, you must also replace the resource. And I was going to ask, what is the responsibility of businesses who are using this in the framing of the logger's view of the forest to give back to the community that they're taking from? This is what I thought would be a good discussion, that I thought both Ben and Sophie would be excellent to think about and answer in a constructive way and try to get it back on track to be a teachable moment. Instead, as soon as I said, it's the logger's view of the forest and these people are the trees, the crowd cheered for me and cut off the rest of the thing I was going to say. And they started shouting and yelling at the presenters.
And these two people were not there to have a heated debate. They thought they were
not coming for
a
debate.
fun chat presentation.
Yeah.
And so are they panicking at this point?
They were not in a good...
Well, what happened was, I was just sitting in the front row, I'm waiting for my cue, and they had said something like 10 minutes for questions. I'm like, yeah, right. I know that's, I didn't realize that they'd put that ethics thing at the end, but I knew that the 10 minutes for questions was not enough time. Never it is enough time. Like when I used to do these for class, I would tell the person, come in, fill half an hour, and we'll do at least 20 minutes for questions. If you don't fill half an hour, that's okay. I'll talk and we'll fill it.
Dear listener, I'm going to interject for a second to help you. If you're going in front of a group of people, lead with questions.
Yeah,
that's the first thing.
Sure.
This is what you always do. You start with, and I'm telling you this as a public speaker with a lot of experience in the classroom. If you want to have a constructive discussion with a group of people you know are there with thoughts, you say, before I start, I would like to write on the board all the questions you have already. And I will lead the discussion through as a way of constructively guiding us through the answers to these questions, using your input as what I'm going to talk about. Because if I'm an expert, that should be no problem.
Yeah.
If you leave it to the end, all you're doing is presenting your point of view as right. And that's not a discussion. That's not a fireside discussion.
No,
right?
at all. We have the space till 1 o'clock. Students have class at 1 o'clock. So I had to pause it at some point to let students leave to go to class. That was another thing I had to do. So I'm just kind of gauging the room. And I'm like, I'm going to jump in at some point because they're way off their schedule. They were not.
More than one professor made eye contact with their own classes and said, you can stay. Like they were basic.
Oh,
This is
okay.
important.
You're right. Like,
Oh,
it's
interesting.
important.
Well, I didn't know that. So anyway, that was just, I'm just going off of what I was
No,
told.
but what I'm going to say is like even the instructors felt that even though it was like heated, this is the important conversation.
Yep.
Right?
So some students left, and in that time, and I did that at a moment where he was kind of fumbling around. He didn't have all the stuff up, so a lot of it was like him kind of looking up his tool and then bringing it up in front of everybody. So it was a little bit of fumbling there. So he was doing that, and a student just put their hand up, I guess.
Right.
And he's like, "Do you have a question?" And he asked directly. Student asked the question.
Floodgates are open.
Yeah.
Yes, and that opened the floodgates. And the student's first question was about the art, stealing the art. Do you know that your things that you've designed here is not stealing art from artists on the internet? And he had he didn't seem to have a good answer for that.
And the way that student framed the question, I thought was really good. They were clearly upset and trying so hard to keep it constructive. They said, how do you know where the art comes from that's being fed into the model? And unfortunately, Ben's answer was, that's not my problem. I didn't make the model.
Yeah.
Right? I'm paraphrasing now, but that was essentially what he was saying. And so then the student followed up by saying, if you knew it was stealing, would it be wrong? All artists steal. That's all we do. That's all you do anyway, kind of vibes.
I hope he said that's what we do.
I don't know. I don't know. He got very defensive about the art thing. So at that point, I'm like, okay, well, we've already got a question going. I stood up, I took the mic, and I said, okay, guys, are you okay? We get into the questions? And they both kind of looked at me like, okay. And they didn't really, they could sense the crowd, but they both did look kind of scared in the moment. And I said, okay, let's go. And so I just went to hands that were up. My only goal in that moment, I did not deliberately go between student and instructor. That was
accidental? You should have taken credit.
All I saw upset students. Like, okay, student 1 upset. Okay. Student 2 upset. Well, okay, there's Chris over there. I'll go talk to Chris. He's an instructor. He might have more level head about this. He did. Yeah. However, he also had a very long prepared statement about AI and its many, many issues.
He came ready.
Yeah.
Yes. Two instructors did. So I went to him, and then I went to another student, and then went to another instructor because he was over on the other side. I was just moving around the room. That's all I do is move around the room, let people talk, get what they have to say out. And I probably wasn't pausing enough for the people to speak. Like at one point, you have
they weren't asking questions.
Well, the guests rather. The speakers were like, I said, okay, question, what do you have to say? And they don't have a question, they have a statement, all these things about AI. What do you think about that? And they don't have an answer because they've been using it. They were not ready for this stuff.
No.
And there's a piece of it to say that in the moment, in retrospect, now when calmer heads are prevailing, you could say, oh, well, the responsibility of the college is to say, oh, well, this is off the rails. Maybe we shouldn't have this conversation here. But that's also irresponsible.
Yeah, it's not what
to
we're here for.
pretend like everyone should always get along on every topic is irresponsible. And so to have what is probably the most important discussion of those students' lives in the creative industries be heated, thank goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, what will they think of next?
There just didn't seem to be any awareness of how AI has affected specifically the graphic design industry, because one instructor made a point of saying like the jobs have disappeared from AI from graphic design in the last couple of years because of this stuff, because of people thinking, oh, I can just do it myself. I don't need to hire a graphic designer. And so I went around for a few more, and then I did cut it short early as I just sensed that all the questions were going to be about this, and they didn't really have a good answer. So I wrapped it up. I said, let's give them a round of applause. And the students booed. They booed. And someone said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Hire a real person. Yeah. And they were like, all these things. And the students were just worked right up. And it was not a good scene.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Got out of there as quick. Oh, yeah, no. Somebody yelled at me for not being a good moderator.
Yeah.
That was, Gregory witnessed that.
Right there. Someone like came up and was very upset. And I don't know this for a fact, but my suspicion is that it was a parent of one of the people. And that they felt that
so you got yelled at on
Eyes
behalf of the presenters, not on behalf of the student.
Yes, that I didn't handle. I should have shut it down and moved on to the next topic.
And I opened my big mouth in that moment and said, we can't, I interjected. It wasn't my place to interject, but I did interject to say you can't expect that a crowd always agrees with you. That's not the point of school. And then they turned and yelled at me for about 5 minutes and kept saying to me, stop interrupting, like yelling, stop interrupting at me. But I was not really talking.
Hey, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was a very interesting. But I could feel in that moment not an argument about the topic.
No.
It was completely emotional. So, like, I completely forgive that exchange. Like, I understand what happened. If they were, in fact, the parent of a presenter who they feel they were there to be proud of their son or daughter, and suddenly the crowd is booing them, they've got a lot of emotions to deal with. And if I have to be the lightning rod of that, then so be it, I guess.
Well, it just sounds like they came in and were completely blindsided, not expecting anything like this at all. And
everyone loves AI. Everyone historically loves
So is that just because
AI.
we're in the industry that we're in, we know about this perspective? Because it sounds like more and more people in other industries have no idea that there's a whole section of the population that hates AI.
It does not do what it's promising to do. And that is now obvious, right?
I want to argue. I don't think it's a section. I think right now it's currently the majority.
Yeah.
However, the people who are advocating for AI are the people with capital, and therefore
have something to gain from it being
yeah.
used. And the rest of us are sick of it being shoved down our throats in
because
every
we have
instance.
Skills.
Yeah.
So if you characterize AI simply as people with money having access to skills, so that people with skills don't have access to money, which is essentially how it's being framed in the creative industry, it's almost impossible to have a constructive conversation unless you're having a conversation also about class, right? And nobody is prepared to have a conversation about class in any business setting because there is just too many blindfolds on in those situations of like business as business, right? And so it just completely goes off the rails. Now, let's take all of our energy upset about how the world is teetering on the brink of civil war, real war, actual war, and war with technology to come down to a simple act of resistance. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I want to have Lyndon on, because you are undergoing, whether you know it or not, all comics are political. All creative acts are political.
correct. Yeah.
And people can say, no, they aren't. We need to keep the politics out of this. Read a book. You'll understand what I mean. I'm not going to teach you why everything is political in this podcast, but I will say that the act of writing, producing, and self-funding your own creative enterprise is now an act of resistance in this world. And we have seen crowdfunding platforms be the place where tastes have gone to find what other platforms are not providing them. I can't go into the bookstore and get the new weird indie thing because that's not what is for sale most of the time.
Or boob comics.
Right? Or if you go onto Kickstarter, and also
The Laundryman is not a boob comic, dear listener. I need to preface that whole statement.
yeah, let's frame this constructively. What he means when he's talking about memories is that there is a contingent on Kickstarter that believes that the only thing that sells is the overt sexualization of female bodies.
That came along a lot before Kickstarter.
That's right. And so it has found a bastion there also. But also on Kickstarter are all the other great forms of creativity. And I will not denigrate anyone's, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, as the expression goes. But I will say that we vote with our dollars and we vote with our time. And you have voted with your dollars and time on a book that takes a long bloody time to put together. Why didn't you just have a robot do it?
Was that an actual question?
Yeah, that's a real question.
Why didn't you use AI?
Yeah, why don't you use all these simple tools to just get it done faster?
Well, first of all, it didn't exist when we started this project.
Oh.
So
Now you're considering it?
No.
Laundryman 3.0.
Like maybe if AI did a good job, we'd consider it. No. The idea is, first off, I don't know how AI works. Like I was explaining this to someone the other day. Like I don't know if it's an app, if it's a website. I don't know what to do with it. I've never used it. I would
You're not
know where to
qualified
start.
for this discussion.
That's correct. Absolutely. I'm qualified to talk about making comics, not using AI.
Okay, so you're not interested, and I think rightly so, interested in framing it through that lens. I've framed it through that lens, and I think it's important to say, is that what I see as someone who has been the person in the middle of creatives and capital on a recent television show where people with capital want to use AI and people who are creative say, no, don't you know that everyone will hate your show if you do that? And they go, why? At the conference I was at, everyone loves AI, right? Like that's legitimately what happened.
Yeah.
This is why I came to your talk, is because I'd been in that meeting and I knew that they're so out of touch with what's real. And I wanted to see what would happen when a room of hundreds of people who are passionate about their creativity are told, we don't need you. But the only way their system works is borrowing from their body of work without their permission. So you have a body of work that you do have permission to do. Justin has a body of work he's been working on, working on your largest single graphic novel project, more individual illustrations probably than you've ever undertaken for one project in your whole life.
It's true.
Wouldn't it have been, why don't you look for the ease? Why is it that being an artist is important to your life and not just the finish line?
Because the journey is the reward. The journey is the good part.
Said the tree in the forest with the wind blowing through his branches.
And the friends we make along the way.
Right? The little squirrel up there in the branches.
So I don't know how to use AI, but I do read the news. I do read the studies. There is enough emerging evidence to suggest that the continued use of AI atrophies your brain because you aren't critical thinking, you aren't problem solving. I have an opinion on AI that I've been working through recently, which is like, if AI worked properly and it actually freed up the boring parts of my life, and I was using that time to make art or to somehow negate the effect of the environmental impact that the AI was creating, maybe there would be an argument for using the platform. But what all these tech companies want you to do is use AI videos and then go watch short form videos that they can feed you ads with. Like, the whole thing makes me upset. Yeah. And the more and more evidence that comes out, it's actually very similar to what we've seen about studies regarding social media use, generally speaking, is that the more you use it, the worse your brain gets. And we can see every day every week there's a new study that comes out that says kids don't read anymore. Kids can't think anymore. There was one that came out last week that said kids didn't know how to use books. They were typing and swiping on books. The whole thing is ridiculous.
They will remain nameless, but I will read you this from a university professor recently sent to me. I was marking midterms and they are the worst I have ever seen. The average grade is an F. This is me being very easy, but half of them, over half, simply came to the midterm and did not complete it. I was trying to figure out how to inflate the grades and curve them, But there's no way to inflate a zero, right? It's the first in-person midterm they have done for years, and that means they cannot use AI. They aren't even guessing on the multiple choice.
Yeah. I think, honestly, getting back to the thing that happened, I think, like we talked about there being instructors involved, and this was like announced ahead of time. I do think this was a bit of a protest by those instructors and students as well, because of the college has gone really hard on the AI stuff, like all organizations. Last year,
because that's top down, that's capital talk.
And I think the board meetings at the top levels of the college are very much the same as the ones you're describing, where they all think it's a great thing. They all think we need to use it.
Wouldn't it be great if teachers never had to plan a lesson? We could just tell them what to do.
So they did this last year. Everything was talking about AI. They kind of went hard. We had a very similar presentation to this one last year, showing us how our students weren't needed anymore. And this is more about writing than about art. But it was like we met a person who runs their own marketing agency, and they're a graphic designer but couldn't write, so they just use AI for all the writing parts of their business. So all right, then you don't need a Crecom student anyway. But I do think it was planned. These guys had very planned things they wanted to say. I think they're pushing back at the college, saying you don't have to be all gung ho about this. Like, just slow down a bit, relax. If it's something is useful, use it. Otherwise, I don't think we need to touch it.
Do not be fooled by the artistry of this creation. No doubt there was talent in the crafting of this simulator.
Would you have these individuals back at the do you think they'd come back?
No,
even if
they would not come back.
He said as much online. I saw his post online afterwards.
Yeah, he should come back and have a constructive discussion, but
prepared this
that's
time.
not, not everyone is, that's not everyone's strength.
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
Let me ask you guys a gotcha question.
Oh, no.
Right?
He got us.
What?
He's already got us.
Right? Which helps to frame this discussion. What is the purpose of your life?
Oh, boy.
Oh. I think that every person is responsible for discovering and fostering their own purpose in life. That's what we call existentialism.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, as an academic definition.
So you're responsible for your own purpose in life. But in order to, let's just use that as an operational definition. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah? Do you have something to add?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it changes, though. I mean, it changes all the time, and it can shift. It can be more than one thing at a time. Like right now, a big purpose of my life is my kids. So that kind of takes priority over anything else. But I also have, of course, my own happiness and my own interests and things I want to do as being meaningful. So it depends.
So the purpose, none of you immediately said the purpose of life is to work.
It's to generate value for the shareholders.
This is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have the logger's view of the forest, then the purpose of anyone's life is simply to generate value for the shareholder. But no, we're living beings, and there's so much more to that. And so, of course, you will labor for years on your new graphic novel because you like the person you are that shows up during that time. Yeah. That's the person you're spending time with.
I get to do that. I don't have to do 12 hours of manual labor. I don't have to sit in a cubicle and fill out spreadsheets. Like, I love my job.
In defense of Justin's physical activity, he then puts himself through the most grueling boxing routines on a regular basis for fun.
But I think what's important to consider here, Gregory, is that the people in this conversation are outliers from the societal norm. So much of North American society is, you're shaking your head.
Well, I'm not interrupting.
Yeah.
I was just shaking my head while I write furious notes.
Yeah.
You drew it.
So much of the North American work ethic has been driven towards people working standard 9-to-5 jobs and deriving their meaning from that. And it's why so many retirees struggle in retirement, and they go back to work, or they die slowly.
What you're actually describing is evidence that we're not outliers at all. You're describing that the norm is people have more than one thing to do with their life and more than one thing they want to do with their life, and they are being told not to. And eventually that piles up into metastasizes into
You'll do it when you're
negative
retired.
things.
You'll do it
Yeah.
There's been a big shift, I think, over the last few years in that. Like, our parents grew up with that mentality. Like, I'm going to work a horrible job for 30 years and then retire, and then I'll be able to have fun. That's not the case anymore. That's not what we're working for.
That dollar went a lot further back then.
Oh, sure, yes. But it's also like, what are we going to do in the meantime? I want to enjoy what I'm doing now.
I want to tell you a story.
That's what people like my kids do. They want to find a job doing something they love that will give them fulfillment and also be able to support them financially.
Last time I visited my father at his home, we stood on the rail of the deck and we looked out at nature. It was winter. This was over the Christmas break. We're looking out. It's blustering snow. We're looking at it, but the sun is kind of fighting through. And he goes, you know what I've really learned recently is how important it is to just stand and appreciate these simple moments. Life is not all about work. And he's 85, right? I love him dearly, but that is not a realization that one should
have at 85.
Suddenly have at 85.
Well, better late than never.
You're right. I mean, now he's a person who's always stopped to smell the roses, but I mean, come on, to be like giving me life advice at 85 about, maybe you don't have to work so hard. Maybe you can enjoy just the beam of light through the tree. This is okay. I actually laughed out loud and said, "Oh, you figured that out, did you, Dad?" Right?
And now at this point, I feel like we've really sort of wandered into a larger socio-economical conversation here that Gregory can later work to tie back into art, because we're talking about how genre gets made here. But a lot, going back to what Dan is saying about your kids, like the reporting is saying that young people now are foregoing that work until retirement mentality, because at one point, not my generation, but prior to me, the idea was that you could go to college, and coming out of college, you'd go into a job that would pay you a pension and you could work at for 30 years and then retire. And in that same time, buy a house, and you would have a comfortable living with some savings that you could then enjoy the 10 to 15 years of your life that you have left when you decide you're no longer working. And
if you were a creative person or even a business person in Canada, if you could scale up enough, you could break into the U.S. market, which was 10 times the size of the Canadian market. Now we have a very different reality for the next 30 years.
And I mean, tuition costs have gone up exponentially. Housing costs have gone up exponentially. Groceries continue to go up. That idea, all of those benchmarks that my generation and younger have been sold as being things that will come naturally if you do these things, they don't exist anymore. And so kids are deciding, younger people are deciding, well, what's the point then if I'm just going to work and be miserable for my entire life? I'm going to start taking advantage of my body and my youth and my ability to do things now while I can, because I won't be able to later. There's this whole mentality about if your job gives you PTO, you take the PTO, whereas there's a certain work culture that would have said, yes, we give you the paid time off, but you better not take it. It sends a bad attitude towards the rest of the company.
That's a bad example.
And, I come from this. I went to law school. I saw a lot of the culture of the legal profession, which is to work your ass off and not take the time off because labor laws don't apply to lawyers. And the idea of that was that if you were a new person at a firm, you should be the first one in and the last one out, because you need to send a message that you're working harder than everyone else.
That's just corporate culture.
It is corporate culture.
But that's the bullshit they gave you.
But the legal profession is notoriously slow moving.
Yeah.
The mentality there is, we do it this way because we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
So I use that as an example, a prime example of that sort of culture, because there are obviously workplaces where that culture is shifting. And it's a main driving factor why I don't currently work in that culture. Okay, back to you.
The end result of so I've been talking with my kids about this, talking with teachers about this, talking with Ben offline about this, because I don't think there's one simple answer. And that's the one thing I wanted to say on this topic, dear listener, is that if I'm not against technological advancement. I'm the author of The Automatic Age. So my suspicion is people will use the tool for evil. That's what I think. But that doesn't mean every tool will be used that way. And so there are probably good uses for it. And I hope someone uses it to figure out how to identify cancer cells early or clean up the oceans. but it doesn't need to write novels or screenplays. Like, that's not what we need it for, to make children's books. We need it to do the things that we are no good at doing. The end result of using those tools, talking about this reduction of attention span, the only outcome of using those tools regularly is to reduce human capacity. That's all it will do. The more you use it, the less you're capable of doing.
And there's some things that's okay for right? Like, we can get AI to do stuff. Remember in that episode of Star Trek Voyager when they had the holograms doing all the work?
Yes.
Right? But then then they became sentient. Then they had to fight for their rights.
Right. Yeah. They need rights.
So what happens when the AI becomes sentient?
Well, this is an ethical conversation. Are we hoping to have a slave race? Is that all the end result is?
Did you see that there's a social media platform now for AI only? It's just AI bots talking to other AI bots.
Don't touch the merchandise. It's all swamp in here. You made a mess of yourself.
It's mislabeled. This is not. It's not artificial intelligence. It's just a much better search engine than we've seen before.
Yeah.
It's a new kind of search engine. It's not thinking of anything new. It's just grabbing from whatever you fed it and giving you the most generic result it can. So it just gives you what it thinks is the best answer.
So Tara and I, dear listener, that's my wife. This is your first episode, Tara and I were talking about how this strange event has occurred where we use the term AI, which came from science fiction, to describe something that is in no way artificially intelligent. It's just a large language model. And so when we actually have artificial intelligence, we're going to need to call it something else because of the stigma that is now attached to AI. There'll have to be a new term that describes what it is. So the timeline of history where thinking machines that came from Earth are called AI ended today, like this last few years.
It's going to be called machine intelligence.
It'll be called something else. Yeah. And
the singularity.
I look forward to whatever that is going to be.
Something about sentience.
The ominous.
Clankers.
That's my word. Don't you not know it?
Clankers is right.
Yeah, that's what my kids call it. Okay, so we're making books. We're doing things. You have a new Kickstarter that's just launched.
The Laundryman.
The Laundryman. And
we got there. Yeah. We got there.
And we got there. And the Laundryman is no chatbots, no large language models, no generated images, just hard work, illustration, plenty of digital tools. Photoshop is a digital tool, and there's an argument to be made.
We don't use Photoshop.
What's that?
We don't use Photoshop.
Oh, no, you're now using all in Procreate.
Steven uses Procreate.
You lay it out in InDesign, though, don't you?
No, just Illustrator. Just Adobe Illustrator.
So, yes, interesting. I noticed recently that the new Adobe update meant that I could more easily turn off my AI tools, so I feel like a change is
good.
Happened.
Pushing it is hard.
This creative endeavor, which is an act of rebellion, whether you believe it is or not, is just making a cool thing that people can read and go somewhere for an hour or two. Why? Why is this something you want to dedicate your life to? Like, you have other prospects.
Do I?
Well, other people would say proudly, my son is a lawyer. And those same people would probably be remiss in the dinner party to say, my son makes funny books.
I wish they called them funny books.
But so what is the purpose of your life? Why are you expressing your meaningful struggles in this way?
I like it.
You like it.
Isn't that all? Isn't that the only thing we need to ask people? Do you like to do this?
Have you found your calling? Do you
feel fulfilled doing this?
But the danger of that is, I mean, yes, but the danger of that is our friends at the fireside chat would say, yes, I have found my calling, and these are the tools I use for it. What's the problem? Right? So how, this is a better way to phrase it, how do your ethics show up in your work?
I mean, if you're asking what the difference between what we do and what AI does is that...
No, I asked, how do your ethics show up in your work? I'll frame it another way.
Yeah.
You're a person who doesn't, in my experience around you, take for granted the privileges you've had.
Right.
You don't tend to look at other people simply as assets.
Right.
You consider people's feelings before you ask them to accomplish tasks.
Right.
You sometimes express your own displeasure at tasks that you don't want to do, but know you must.
Often.
Right. You're a living human person with dreams.
Right.
How does that show up in your work? Because all of those things I listed, those other tools don't do. So if we simply look at you as someone increasing shareholder value, these are incomparable values that can never be replicated by that grand artificial machine.
And just the knowledge that AI did it makes you not want to read it. Like anything that I know, this is what has started happening when I started getting student work in. As soon as I realized that the student had used AI to write the paper, I was like, I don't even want to mark this anymore. Like it is an automatic F if we can prove it, which is difficult to do still, but it's like, once you confront them, they usually own up to it. But I just don't want to. Completely, my job is like I don't want to even give them any kind of feedback because they didn't do the work. So, and I think that's true of anything. Like there's someone's getting blowback about an AI movie. Who made the AI movie?
Aronofsky. I was so disappointed.
So there's people are getting upset about that kind of stuff. Like to take the human element out of it, people do not like it.
Yeah.
Right. So
now we don't know that whole story, but all of those things that go into the laundryman are from you. That's you. That's your human agency. So what of the essential Lyndonness shows up in your book that these other listeners, these dear listeners, can hear the part of Lyndon that's in the book that has nothing to do with the plot, has nothing to do with the monsters, which are nothing to do with the illustrations, which Stephen did an amazing job of. What is the part that can't be replicated that is going to be synthesized in that work? Do you think about that? Is that part of your...
Don't think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we bring our values and the way we carry ourselves into our storytelling, but I don't know that it necessarily becomes a thought about decision, a considered decision when trying to make up genre tales. I don't think it's arguable that all comics, particularly genre comics historically, have those, if we want to call them, political aspects to them, because having a viewpoint is the same thing as being political.
All viewpoints are political.
Yeah.
But it's a snapshot of you guys right now.
In this instant.
Right. And it's a piece of your portfolio. And when you look back 10, 15, 20 years from now, you're going to see the progression of what Laundryman led to and what came after that.
Totally.
And how things changed. And you don't get any of that. You don't get that history if you're just pumping in prompts.
In many ways, if I think of my own catalog, my back catalog from Gregory's eyes only, not from the regular reader's eyes, is a list of things I think are bullshit. Right? And I'm trying to work through what that is all about. And that's how it shows up. But that's not what the story
You're growing as a person.
I'm trying to grow as a person. And dear listener, falling short regularly, right? It's just, we're doing our best.
It's true, listener. He falls short regularly.
I mean, I won't deny it. But you now end up being a champion of so many more things in this space and time. Like Justin says, in this moment of time, Lyndon and your new Kickstarter, The Laundryman, is responsible for one more thing in the world that was made by people. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought that we would reach a point in time where that mattered? That was what we used to take for granted. People make stuff. Now we're like, I wonder if a person made this.
Do you think I need to add a disclaimer to this campaign saying not generated by AI?
1,000%.
Because I didn't think about it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to when you're setting it up. There's a box that you have to check, but I wonder if I need to make a little line.
I don't think you need to, because it's obvious.
No,
I hope so.
No, it's not obvious, because we stand in conventions now and people go, how'd you make all this? And you know what they're asking, right?
Yeah. So that happens a lot.
Yeah. How'd you make all this? This is pretty good. How'd you make all this? Right?
There's a couple prompts in ChatGPT. Easy.
I don't spend any time, really.
It's my art,
Yeah.
Well, I really got into NFTs at one point.
Thank God that's over.
Thank God that's over. No, it's just back. Now it's this other thing, right? It's what that is just the grift changing. But the grift will never go away, right? Yeah. This snake oil will clear your whatever, right? Fix your personnel problem with this new ointment, right? Rub it all over your business, and your clients and customers and professionals will all disappear.
So in summary, Gregory.
Yes. In summary. Oh, you want me to summarize?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to.
No.
I'd like you to summarize.
No. You know what? Let's ask ChatGPT.
Fuck.
It is an option, actually. And when I upload the podcast, I can do it.
Oh, my God. It's so
Can it do it in Gregory's voice?
Maybe.
No.
I could beat that guy. I honestly don't use it. And the only AI tool I use for this podcast is the one that cleans up the sound and makes it a little bit better.
Okay.
And that's just it's an AI tool that it doesn't add anything. It takes away, really. I don't even know how it works, but it just...
And just the fact they call it AI is false.
It is. Right. It does work on the same principle as LLMs, but it does not create anything new. It basically kind of takes away all the bad elements of sound somehow.
Yeah.
It's magic. It really does feel like magic.
Yeah.
It's okay, Mommy. It doesn't hurt.
I think it's really important, dear listener, and we know that a lot of our listeners are people who are creating their own stories, drawing their own pictures, wanting to get into publishing spaces, wanting to get into that world, and they wonder, is there a point? Well, that question of is there a point happens every 5 years in every industry forever. So this is just the loudest one, and it's only loud because of these goddamn phones that connect us to every negative thought. But it would be no different than, oh no, radio means no one will ever go to a live show. No.
TV means no one will listen to the radio.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
You know,
or
so
the
like,
movie theaters would die. They thought that was going to happen.
And things change. And we thought it was the end of vinyl records. But they're having a surge like they have never had before.
VHS tapes. They're back.
Back. Right? Because it turns out owning your media is cool. Right? Now, there's the danger always of just making one more widget to pile up in your garage. Don't do that if you can help it. I am probably going to be interned in a tomb of my own books. That's probably what's going to happen. But
they'll be good books.
Written by people.
At least they'll be written by people. Let's put ourselves constructively in the shoes of a person who has showed up as an expert on a topic and the crowd is not having it. Because that's really what we started. And I legitimately don't think it was Ben or Sophie's fault that happened. I don't think it's the college's fault that happened. I don't think it's the students' fault that they were mad about it. I don't think that you could have planned it. You could predict the weather sometimes, but it doesn't always rain. And so I came there to see if there would be a pleasant storm. And I was right, but what do you do in that situation? Have you ever been in a situation where you stand up in front of a room and they are just not having it? And what would you do that would make it useful?
Yeah, if you're expecting it is one thing versus if you weren't expecting.
Yeah, you have to assume you don't expect it. This is what we're prepping for. This is of use to the dear listener. Suddenly, you've gone up to share at your Pechakucha or to talk in front of a room full of people.
Most people can barely get over the hurdle of going in front of those people and saying anything.
Yeah.
Let alone having a spirited debate.
So allowing for that, let's imagine then that for Ben and Sophie, this is probably one of the most traumatic experiences of their life. Yeah. Listed in people's greatest fears, right? Being mangled in a car accident is way down the list. Drowning is way down compared to public speaking. Yeah. So then to be called out and vilified during your public speaking event, I think would be a terrifying moment.
Mm-hmm.
What's some advice? What could you do differently? How do you put the brakes on in that moment? How do you frame it in a way to say, like, do you say?
You mean like above read the room?
Yeah.
Know your audience. The biggest mistake is they didn't seem to be aware that they were going to be presenting to a bunch of artists, yes.
Yeah.
And then that's maybe lack of awareness about the programs.
You don't want to be a politician and just say always the thing you think the room is.
No. But I mean, if they'd known that, maybe they would not have gone hard on the AI art part of it, the conversation, right? That seemed to be very, very mismatched. And I said to whoever was organizing it, I just sent an email and said, sorry for what happened. I don't know that there was anything I could have done differently, but I would have said, if it had been a group of business and min students, they probably would have loved it.
Right.
Because they don't know anything about that stuff. And they're like, oh, this is cool. As a business owner, I can do this. Although it's not good. As a business owner, you want to pay somebody to do the art. This is why the beer label thing bothered you so much, because that would be like, that's something you've done.
Well, and yeah, the non-such was a big component of like, we're going to hire local artists. We're going to work with a bunch of different ones. When if their beer label does well, they get like a percentage. Like they were very like,
which is what Dastardly Villain Brewing here in Winnipeg does, and I do a label for them, and they pay me a royalty.
There's a Half Pints as well. They do that as well. Like there's a lot like in Winnipeg in Canada. There's all these little microbreweries popping up everywhere, and they have gone like hand in hand with local artists working together. And there's been so much cool artwork produced by these companies. So it's really, really disappointing to see one go this way.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is there's no way to help somebody?
No, I'm just saying, do a little more research, be more prepared. I would say another issue, taking away all the AI stuff, was that there didn't seem to be much of a useful message for students other than check out this cool AI stuff that I learned how to do. Right. And I said, I think we're beyond that at this point. We all know what this can do. We all have seen it in many different ways. And at this point, like, give them something to help with their time management or something that they can do to help them with their studies at this point, because that's all they care about. They only care about passing their classes.
So the advice I was going to give is exactly what you were going to say, but I know exactly what they should have focused on. They said one thing that I think their entire conversation should have been around, because it's how they both operated. And when they looked at each other, when one of them said it, they were like, yeah, that's it exactly. They said, taste is the new currency. Right? In the modern world, taste is the new currency. And if they had framed their entire discussion around how their taste is informing their choices, rather than their tools are informing their choices, it would have been the kind of discussion where you can say to another artist, right, as an art director, this is what I need. As an artist, this is what you provide. Are you the right tool for this job? How can you provide value better than this tool? That would have been a constructive thing. And just pausing to recognize that the room, here's my advice to public speakers. If the room seems hostile, as the bard says, I know not seems, it is. They are mad. And you have to immediately put on the brakes of whatever you had planned and say to the room, hey, I see that people are upset. I am nervous. This is not what I thought I was here to talk about, but I'm willing and open to talk about it. But please know I'm not prepared. Like, you have to put on the brakes and be honest. And that is a terrifying thing. And then you have to look, and this is my advice to you, dear listener, if you're in that position, you look to the moderator and you say, moderator, if this gets out of hand, can you help me turn it off?
Yeah.
Because I'm not prepared for this, but I'm willing to have this discussion. And if you're not willing, of course, you got to flee the stage, and that's bad for you. But you've got to read that room.
Yeah.
Right?
Be ready with that smoke grenade.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, you got to read that room. So, if you are a creative person and you have put your heart and soul into writing something, into drawing something, into putting something out in the world, you could benefit greatly, whether you back it or not. I'm going to check out The Laundryman on Kickstarter and see the way in which Lyndon has framed the work involved. Because what Kickstarter does is it says, here are the risks of making the project. And in their case, the project is already finished. Here are the steps that went into making the project. And here's what the money will be spent on if we raise it. So if you're wondering, like, how do I do this? Just go check that out. And then the algorithm itself, yes, that technology that we're nervous about, will suggest at the bottom of the page other projects that are similar. And you can learn a lot about what you're hoping to do next by looking at under the hood of how everyone does their work. The cool thing about all those projects is that they're made by people, for people, and you're a people. So you should probably go check out the
Laundryman.
This has been Super Pulp Science. Fuck AI.
Okay.